Right, so yesterday we were treated to the spectacle of Keir Starmer getting completely owned by a couple of uni students who caught him like a rabbit in headlights, pinned down in front of cameras as he was and quizzed over his incessant U-turns on policy, specifically in this case in relation to climate change and the Green New Deal and the fact he's gone back on his word yet again in relation to those issues. Despite always claiming he's happy to engage and discuss such matters, he never is. He ignores them. They're beneath him. There is an arrogance to Keir Starmer, who used to apparently ignore staffers when he was a shadow minister under Corbyn's leadership. So despite the interruption he got in Kent yesterday by climate change activists having the temerity to hold him, a knight of the realm no less, to account for his dishonesty, what he actually went there to talk about was education, and in particular what he refers to as the class ceiling. Class instead of glass. Oh, how droll. Saying how he wants to shatter this class ceiling and offer better opportunities to working class people. Now, nobody of a working class persuasion would argue with that sentiment. Whether we believe an incorrigible liar like Starmer is another matter. Starmer set out his stall by saying snobbery holds people down and holds people back, and it stops people from poorer backgrounds being able to advance in life in the same way as middle and upper class people can. And it all falls under the heading of the fifth of his 5 missions, for however long they last for anyway, which is removing barriers to opportunity. Under this heading, Starmer plans to increase vocational training, tackle child poverty, revamp the national curriculum. Again, teachers will be thrilled. He wants to tax private school education and place an emphasis on oracy, which I'll come back to in a moment. Now, Starmer makes much of his supposed working class roots. His mum, the nurse, who apparently begged him to not let his father go private when his mother was very ill. I wonder what she'd make of him taking private healthcare funding and advocating for more private healthcare intervention in the NHS now then. There's also his son of a toolmaker shtick, which he wheels out so often, despite his father allegedly being a factory owner rather than just a toolmaker, and what a massive tool he made in Keir Starmer. But if you listen to him, he himself is the example he wants others to emulate. He broke the class ceiling himself to go to university, having come from such roots, the first of his family to do so, became a lawyer, became director of public prosecutions, and is now likely to become prime minister. But hold up, he's singing quite the song here, making quite the promises, setting out a vision. But we need to remind ourselves who this is coming from. It's Keir Starmer. He lies like a rug. Starmer didn't break the class ceiling so much as put it back together behind him. He went to university, yes, sure. First in his family, as I said, apparently to do so. Good for you. It cost you nothing to go, though, when you went, and you've gone from abolishing tuition fees to not abolishing them. So much for breaking the class ceiling there, when working class kids face being saddled with masses and masses of debt. If I were in Keith's position and wanted to break the class ceiling, I'd abolish private schools completely rather than just tax them. I'd abolish those tuition fees and mean it. I'd restore student grants. I'd abolish unpaid internships, which favour people from wealthier families as the bank of mummy and daddy can support them whilst they work for nothing. And actually, this is why so many of our media mouthpieces are so rubbish, because journalism is horrendous for such internships and filled with journalists from that kind of background. That needs reforming. Now, if Starmer was truly all about breaking the class ceiling, he wouldn't be a walking, talking example of those who lord it over us, would he? The arrogance he shows to people he considers underlings, which seem to come along with titles such as Sir, because nothing quite shows the difference between them and us, like a knighthood does. So how about you surrender yours then, Keith, if you really mean it, and abolish all hereditary titles completely along with it while you're at it? If you want working class people to be elevated in society and offered greater opportunity leading the party of the working classes as you supposedly do now, how about you introduce all working class shortlists to become MPs? Let's look at some of the recent candidates you've got selected right now fighting by-elections. You've got Danny Beale standing to replace Boris Johnson in Uxbridge, former London School of Economics student, House of Commons researcher, local politician, and has been a manager of assorted charities in his time. You've got Keir Mather standing in Selby, former skivvy for Wes Streeting, Oxbridge, works for the CBI. You've got Alistair Strathern standing in Nadine Dorries mid-Bedfordshire seat, despite the fact she still hasn't officially resigned yet. As far as I'm aware, I don't think she's finally done it yet. He's Oxbridge as well, formerly worked for the Bank of England. Some working class credentials there for sure, all of them parachuted in, of course. But I want to come back to that point on oracy that I made earlier. Oracy is the ability to speak fluently and grammatically, no more, no less. And Starmer thinks the working class need lessons in it. He wants to pay for this via that taxation of private school fees that I mentioned beforehand, instead of just abolishing them. And as far as I'm concerned, as long as such fee-paying schools exist, they will always receive preferential treatment, as will those who attend them. So much of Starmer's class ceiling is just lip service. It shouldn't be about breaking the ceiling. It should be about bringing it down and levelling the playing field. Anyway, oracy, apparently, is the key to advancing the working classes, according to the Gospel of St. Keith. If we all do speak like he does, not so much the hypernasalness, more the way he carefully orates his rote responses, and definitely not in the panicked way he addressed two kids with a banner that scared the bejesus out of him yesterday. I thought about this a bit. And if you take it from the aspect of being able to speak publicly with more confidence, having a greater vocabulary to draw on, these are not bad things in and of themselves. But actually, there's the danger that we can lose who we are through it. Depends how it's put into place, really. Now, oracy is not the same as elocution. Starmer, as far as I'm aware, hasn't mentioned that word specifically. However, Starmer has mentioned in his sales pitch for oracy that it is about children finding their voice, the ability to speak well. And that isn't oracy, that is elocution. That's blurring the line between them. But without more flesh on the bones of this proposal, it's perhaps a confusion some can't help but make. But detail has never been one of Starmer's defining traits, has it? However, what does define the working class the country over is what where they come from means to them. I always remember a lesson I had at school, an English lesson, which was discussing the differences between accents and dialects. And actually, in a multicultural society like ours, it's more than that. It goes beyond regional differences, as I was broadly taught at that time, and into the religious differences and the racial differences. Would Starmer's speaking lessons threaten what it means to come from where you come from in his pursuit of everyone speaking with received pronunciation? I have a thick accent. It defines where I'm from. I always get the ooh-ahs in the comments, and people call me a Wurzel and ask me how is my tractor, and I back this off, not least because the Wurzels come from Somerset and I'm Cornish, and it tickles me no end that some people can't tell the difference, but I can. Would that be wiped out, though? That's my accent. Are you telling me it's holding me back, Keith? Well, no, he's not gone as far as that, but my dialect, well, maybe I have to admit there's something to that, to a degree. For example, in my videos, I don't talk about doing things directly. Or if I point to an article, I don't speak to you all saying, seen an Abbey. Or I could ask your opinion of Keir Starmer by saying, wrong and is he? I could ask a Starmer fanboy if carrying a lead weight like Starmer around is heavy as a. But of course I don't. Even if I might speak like that normal goings on. The thing is, I would speak like that in those terms, with those dialectic Cornishisms, if you like, with those familiar to me. I wouldn't go up country or up along and speak like that with someone from somewhere else, because they mightn't have a clue what I was on about. I should imagine they wouldn't necessarily. I don't need to be taught that, though. I know that I need to enunciate better when in unfamiliar company, choose my words more carefully. Does that really need to be taught? And actually, when it comes down to it, is Keir Starmer telling us we have to become something we're not? Is he telling us to suck eggs here in order to get on in life? Because what makes us proud of where we come from is in what I'm interpreting from his words, what is holding us back. I would hope that's not the case, but I'm very proud to be Cornish, of my accent. I'll be damned if anyone's going to tell me I should change that. Besides, the biggest issue shouldn't necessarily be what kids are taught in schools at this moment in time, but ensuring there are people there to actually teach them, because teachers are leaving the job in their droves. They're on strike all the time at the moment because they're not getting the support for the job that they're in. It's not just about pay, and that's being completely ignored. And of course, Starmer, you will never find on a picket line. So what are you going to do about that rather more significant issue, I would suggest, Keith? I can't help but feel a little insulted by this part of the announcement, and I can't help but think someone as aloof and stuck up as Starmer could think like this. I find it believable. Let's face it, Starmer is as detached from working class as it is possible to be. He plays that son of the toolmaker card so often as to try and sell it, but ultimately his own education from a fee-paying school to Oxford, all the way up to becoming Director of Public Prosecutions, is hardly the typical working class background and route into employment. More what some might call petit bourgeois. In any case, all of this policy predicates on him not breaking his promise on it at some point in the near future, as he wants to do. And after you've liked, shared and subscribed to the channel, as I sincerely hope you will, hopefully my accent doesn't offend you like it might well do to Sir Keith. Another significant issue is making sure the kids are fed well enough to be able to learn effectively as well. So why is he pledging to axe free school meals after he promised to deliver them? Full of contradictions, can't get his lies in order, frankly, in my opinion. So stick with this channel, watch that one or one of hundreds of other videos available, and I'll catch you on the next video, I hope. Cheers, folks.